I've been asked if I would move the motion to elect a chair, as both the chair and the vice chair are missing. That's the brief explanation. Safe and Communities Subcommittee, Monday 28th, in accordance with Standing Order S1A and 9 brackets 1, I propose that Councillor Denise Clues, Councillor Denise Clues to chair this meeting due to the absence of the chair, Councillor David Riley, and the vice chair, Councillor Major Singh. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
All in favour? Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Chair.
Oh, that was quite easy.
thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, members. First item on the agenda is the evacuation procedure. On hearing the evacuation signal, please exit the building by your nearest safety exit. Report to assembly point G. Do not leave the assembly point for any reason until told to do so by a senior fire officer. Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. Members away on official council business. Mr. Tobin.
Chair, we have tonight apologies from both Councillor Singh and Councillor Jarvis will be substituted tonight. We also have apologies from Councillor David Ryan.
Do we have a proposer? Seconder? All in favour? Thank you very much. Disposable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests? No? Okay. Minutes of the meeting of the subcommittee held on the 16th of March 2020. Page 4/1. 4/2. 4/3. Close them. Second up. Everybody okay? Thank you. You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Right. We're in agenda item public participation. Have we any, Mr. Tobin?
No questions. Yeah.
Right. Item for discussion. Presentation by Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Services regarding the Safer Warwickshire Officer pilot. Welcome everybody. I don't know if you'd just like to introduce yourselves first.
Thank you very much. I will do that. And firstly, very impressed by your evacuation procedures. I think the notion of following the directions of the fire officer, if I can just defer that to one of my colleagues over here. Yes, I want to introduce myself. So, Kieran Amos, I'm the current Chief Fire Officer for Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service. The reason for emphasising the current element is I'm unfortunately only due to be with you for another 4 weeks or so, and we have got another excellent Chief Fire Officers in the wings for you, which is Ben Brook. Unfortunately, he can't be here with you tonight, but wanted me to extend his greetings and thanks and a desire to work very closely with North Warwickshire. So, hand over to colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Leo Fielding. I'm Station Manager for Nuneaton, Coleshill, Oldham and Bedford. Relatively new to the role. It's a temporary role at the minute, but I'm giving it my all. Just glad to be invited to this and for the sport where we're aiming to be.
Good evening, everyone. John Wilson. I am moving into the role of prevention officer for in our prevention team. I'm sure you know there's 3 main strands to fire: protection, prevention, and response. And I'm moving into the prevention area. I've been around the block for a long time, so hopefully my skills from response will move into prevention and support preventing the fires in the first place. Prevention is better than cure.
Thank you. If I could just give you a quick summary. This report provides members with an update on progress on the action plan for tackling fly tipping across. Am I on the right there?
No, you took it.
No, I haven't. I've gone too
We
fast.
can do that as well.
Right, carry on.
We can work with the Royal Police and Crime Unit, can't we, to do that?
Right, it's over to you then. Coon.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for your time. This is an initiative that we're really quite excited around. It's a concept that's not particularly new. We've branded it the Safer Warwickshire Officer, I think because we feel that an awful lot of the direction can come from the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Board. And the reason we choose that forum is because your local issues are expressed well in that forum. And the idea of this role, it's based upon a role, sorry, Clive, if you would please just move through some of the slides, thank you. The Tri-Service Safety Officer. So it's nothing new under the sun, is there? And this is a role concept that started down in Cornwall. And it's called the Tri-Service Safety Officer because there's elements of both fire, police and ambulance in terms of co-responding, the PCSO role and a firefighter role. And it's a kind of an amalgam of all three down in Cornwall. We're not looking at the tri-service offer in Warwickshire, and that's basically because at the moment there's no identified need for the co-responder role in this, and also we're still seeking further support from West Midlands Ambulance Service. But the aspiration is it can move into that area. Thank you, Clive. So the role will encompass for Warwickshire the on-call firefighter role. And on-call, they're a very special breed. They form almost half of our service. These are the folk who have alerters with them and live within 4 or 5 minutes of an on-call or retained fire station. You have many within your area, and then they provide the fire cover from those locations. And then also this individual will be trained as a police community support officer. So it's very much an initiative that's come from the Blue Light Collaboration Forum. It's very supported by Warwickshire Police and the Police and Crimes Commissioner Office. And it's a concept that we want to try and promote. We're looking at a pilot scheme for the next 2 years. I shan't apologise about the level of text involved in some of these slides because I was hoping that these can be reference tools for you at a later stage. And I won't go through them line by line, but the key purpose is that you have somebody that's working in a community. And we've identified 2 locations in Warwickshire, one in the south, Shipston on Stour, where we have difficulty in providing operational availability. And then in the north, we've got a slightly different concept that we feel that the Safer Warwickshire Officer can cover 3 areas, which is Coleshill, Atherstone and Polesworth. And that works really well then working with the Safer Neighbourhood teams with Warwickshire Police. And the concept really is that the main bulk of the work is it's directed by police on antisocial behaviour work. But that's really just where the role starts. So if you can imagine that the skipper, the local sergeant, will have a job sheet of kind of antisocial behaviour issues occurring in communities, and the Safer Warwickshire Officer will be directed to look at some of these issues. But the intention is that the emphasis of the role will be looking at more prevention work. So that's one of the reasons we got John here from our prevention team. And I think also it fits well with a fire brand in this role. I think we work in prevention really well, and particularly with those individuals who, particularly young people in communities, might be on the cusp of exclusion from schools, maybe also on the point of being exploited by crime and drawn into crime, county lines, knife crime, guns, alcohol, that kind of stuff. And it allows us to work in communities, building relationships. And as I say, the starting point is that we would work with the neighbourhood teams, but actually the real quality of this role is that they will be working in those locations. They won't be moved around the whole of the county, and they will be building and developing relationships with you all, I hope, in your communities. So we get a really good understanding of what the key issues are for you in your communities and how you would like to see those addressed. So the scope of this is still quite loose, and that's intentional. We want to be able to build and develop the capability and deliver the right levels of service in the right areas. So it's place-based and working with you and other partners, not least Warwickshire Police, of course, and that we design it to meet the needs of your communities. Thanks, Clive. So very much about embedding this officer into those community areas, building those strong relationships, so they're actually the go-to person in the community, and they'll be known not only by yourselves but also by those people in the community, both vulnerable young people and the elderly. It's built something along the lines of a principle as well that's called the Sentinel Principle. And this is a term that's been developed in policing, that you've just got somebody who's uniformed in that community. So that in itself will deter crime. It will also ensure that you've got a go-to person in the community. And also it helps our residents to feel much safer from the fear of crime, which we also know is quite a significant impact for people. And impacts upon people in terms of leaving their homes, feeling secure in their communities, etc. Thanks, Clive. So, very wordy slides. I don't intend to go through all of these explicitly, but the hopes and aspirations are that we actually get to deliver these place-based solutions for you in these communities. Linking in with all of the relevant stakeholders, so we'll have officers, the community safety officers in the communities as well, working cheek by jowl with them, charities, voluntary sector, and as I say, ensuring that we have the right approaches for the issues that you're facing in those areas. Thanks, Clive. There are elements within our county plan and within your own plans about community cohesion, developing, greater resilience in our communities. So we definitely see that being part of this role. And what you'll hopefully see is that there'll be a lot of kind of signposting and referral both to the Safer Warwickshire officer, but also from the Safer Warwickshire officer back into other local services. We would also hope that it will also provide the kind of segue to bring our firefighters from local stations to work with young people. And also where you get an antisocial behaviour issue occur, as we know, very often the things that sit behind that are the upstream prevention issues. So it allows us to then engage with families, provide safe and well checks where necessary, and provide maybe some pathways into some of our other initiatives. So we've got a new initiative at the moment that's very much focused in North Warwickshire, the citizenship course. And this is for year 8s in schools who, again, as I say, are kind of on the cusp of exclusion from school. Maybe have kind of societal issues where they're struggling to re-engage with their community and with society, and that's proving very effective, and we can signpost some of the young people onto those kind of courses. Thank you, Colin. I think I've covered some of that. So it touches on the antisocial behaviour work and where this comes from in terms of our duty to collaborate as well. Thanks, Clive. And this just gives you an indication about how we can use some of our fire brand to address where some of the fire setting is, for instance. So we have a duty to look at this through prevention, working with our partners, and you can clearly see that there's quite a significant number of those kinds of incidents in our county placed in North Warwickshire. We have an antisocial behaviour intervention team, the ASBIT team, and again, the Safer Warwickshire officers are working closely with them and the Safer Neighbourhood teams to address the issues that are identified there. But again, very much from a prevention approach. So it's not seeking to start to issue custodial sentences here, there and everywhere. It's trying to get to the root of the issue for these young people and understand what's going on behind that and see if we can provide some kind of galvanising influences in the community, not least again with the fire brand that can come with this. Thanks, Clive. So just wanted to provide a bit of an outline as to what this requires, and we've already secured the funding from Warwickshire County Council and Fire in this for 2 years for a pilot, and we've got a year's funding from Warwickshire Police. We've also had some indicative commitment and support, not least from North Warwickshire. So thank you for the indications of being able to support this going forwards. But I truly believe this is really good value for money in terms of the public offer and the outcomes we're trying to achieve. And it is a pilot, so it will be purely based upon performance, whether it's actually achieving the objectives for you. If you feel it's meeting those, then obviously we would hope that we could extend this further. But clearly, if it's not, we'll have a number of reviews built in. And I think we need to at least offer the candidates at least a 12-month period, but we would hope for a 24-month period to carry out a proper assessment of the performance around it. But we will be feeding that back to you to see whether it's actually landing on the ground and meeting your expectations. Because again, this is an awful lot of what I hear at the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Board meeting. Lots of great stuff going on, but is it actually delivering in your communities? And that's the effect that we'd like to try and create for you. Thanks, Clive. I mean, these were a number of officers we took down to Cornwall to just get a feel for where the Tri-Service Safety Officer concept was. And you can see we've had some police officers down there. We've also had a former head of our prevention team, Tim Sargent, that attended. And again, much more for your reference later on, but they were absolutely bowled over with this concept. And it started, as I say, in Cornwall with one Tri-Service Safety Officer. I was lucky enough to be down there when it all started off, and it's now gone from 1 to 11, and virtually every rural community has one of these Tri-Service Safety Officers because they can see huge value in it. One example I was offered was a gentleman with dementia who would park his car just randomly all around the village of Hale, village or a town, I'm not quite sure. Lovely pasties, whatever it is. But he'd leave his car parked all over the place, even on the A30, he'd leave it parked up. So it was clearly causing some disruption in the community. And the Tri-Service Safety Officer was initially given the reference from that incident and was able to actually access the vehicle. The gentleman had left his keys in the vehicle, returned the vehicle back to the individual's home, left it locked and took the keys away, of course, for safety reasons. Was able to follow that up, and they carried out what we call a safe and well check in that individual's home. There was a dismantled motorbike in his hallway, lots of cans of petrol, so carried out the safe and well check. But then also because they got access to all the other data sets, they were able to carry out a referral on dementia and an adult social care MASH assessment. And the individual hadn't been assessed for dementia and was given support on that straight away. This was all resolved within about 24, 48 hours. Whereas in all of the other agencies involved in this said it would have taken weeks, if not months, to carry out all of these different initiatives. Now, it so happened that the gentleman lost his vehicle, but clearly probably shouldn't have been on our highways, leaving the car here, there, and everywhere, but was given better support, was made safe in their home. And it's just one example of how all of these kind of functions can come together in a community and provide better wraparound care for individuals. The young people in that community of Hale as well, they soon established their own youth community group, and it was very much centred around the fire station, which in Hale is actually a Tri-Service station, and they did similar principles, similar input to the citizenship course that we're running now, and accessed young firefighter courses and things like that. So just getting young people back on the straight and narrow, really. So lots of benefits there. And again, I feel strongly this can offer a great deal for our communities because they're hooked into the Safer Neighbourhood teams. They'll also be linked into rural crime initiatives and, hopefully delivering the types of services that you want to see in your communities. Thanks, Clive. So I think that's the final slide. It leaves this open for further questions. I have got a longer presentation with more detail should you want to refer to it later on, but I didn't want to overload you with this. As I say, it's a pilot. The timeframes we're looking for now is that we're looking to put this out for recruitment to some of our existing staff, and then we would get those individuals onto the PCSO courses. So there's a couple of key dates that we're looking at. So recruitment, we're confident we can get that rolling fairly soon, and the PCSO courses are in the hands of Warwickshire Police. We think there's one that's due around about October time. My learned colleague, John Wilson, with me tonight, did put forward another idea that we just land this in the community because we've got the funding guaranteed, and we put somebody in the community now and then follow up with a PCSO course. So still working with the Safer Neighbourhood team, but get somebody into your community working and building those relationships right now. And we can't often use those kind of terms right now, but I think in this context, we're talking a matter of weeks, maybe months, rather than writing to October time when we have a fully fledged Safer Warwickshire officer. So that's the kind of concept. Hopefully we feel it's about doing things, really good things with the community, not to the community. Really working with you and understand what we can offer. And I suppose I'm here just to say, love to engage with you further around this, seek your support. Thank you for the support you've shown so far. Dave Riley's been a great supporter thus far as well. And I suppose I would commend it to you as a concept and seek any questions that you have.
Any questions on this topic, Councillor Davey?
It just feels like that you're reinventing the wheel in respect of, I live in a small mining village and we've got PCSOs, but we don't see them very often.
Yeah.
We have the usual antisocial behaviour, the motorbikes going on, the train line between the two old college sites and everything. And you're suggesting one person is going to be covering Coleshill, Addiston and Polesworth, and then one person covering Shipton and Stout. It's a lot, surely, especially in the north of the county, for one person to do on their own. How are the practicalities going to work in regard to, is it going to be a phone call from an agency or a person or a referral from the police or what for that person then to deal with the issue?
Yeah.
Or is that person going to be, I don't know, pounding the beat or whatever with the non-existent PCSOs?
Well, I suppose, I think the point about the less visible PCSOs is probably the key point here. You're right. We can't split them out three ways. I think the concept is that we would have one of these in every one of our on-call areas. So I think going forwards, we want to see 3 in this North Warwickshire area, 1 in each community. That's certainly the concept that Cornwall have gone with, and it's working. We wanted to test it in 2 different locations, 2 quite different risk profiles, and it probably could be, and this is again open to you, I suppose, as the customer, to tell us where you think they're best placed, but they are going to work alongside the Safer Neighbourhood teams from Warwickshire Police. So I think it's about kind of seeing where they land best and where they have the best effect, but we want these people to be very visible, and it might be that after, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, you tell us actually where you need them at the moment for the pilot scheme is Polesworth, and we'll go with that. What we didn't want to do is define it down to a point where, we've made all the decisions and it's going to, the community's going to kind of lump it really. So the idea is let it fall into your community space, see where it adds the most value, see where the risks are, and see where the brand works the best, I suppose, as well. Because as I say, I think it's something somewhat different from PCSO role, where we can have the biggest effect for the community. And we know we've got various issues. Certainly we had some quite serious knife crime issues up here, and it might be that we're best engaged with young people in that community for a period. So it's going to be very much focused on what you think is the the right place to go. So I suppose hopefully that answers some of the question. And then it's there is the desire then that we we've got a 2-year period. Again, Magic Money Tree starts to shake out, and obviously, we'll be looking at a different concept here. But at the moment, one person is all we can offer. So it's really just saying to you, well, where do you want that person? It can change through the 2-year pilot period, and then we'll just listen to you and build the relationships where we need to. So I suppose that's it, really, in a nutshell. The other thing is with the PCSOs and the Safer Neighbourhood teams is that they may get moved around a much greater distance. These individuals are not. The design of them is that they will be in one community only. But there was a desire, as I say, to look at a broader conurbation for North Warwickshire, just because it kind of matched the neighbourhood team better.
Thank you.
Councillor Tony Clues?
Obviously, you said you want this person to start as soon as possible, really. When you get to the recruitment of the PCSO to become a PCSO in October, what's the training time period are you expecting? Because obviously that person will be taken away from that, so that'll be left empty again.
I suppose that's the adverse impact of starting them quicker, I suppose, because the bottom line is the structures we had they wouldn't hit the ground until they've carried out the PCSO training.
Yeah.
But our officers are very adept and able to work in communities, but they won't obviously have all the powers of a PCSO. So I suppose there is a caveat that they will be going away for some PCSO training and then they'll come back into the communities. But we just thought landing them earlier on gives us a chance to build relationship. And I think this is where the greatest strength of that role comes from. That actually we want them to be really embedded into those communities and getting to know people. And then obviously, if we can align that with PCSO course, then drop out as the fully fledged Safer Warwickshire officer, that's the kind of ideal scenario.
Do you know how long the PCSO course is?
Yeah, I think it's 2.5 weeks in terms of the initial PCSO light course, and then there's maintenance and competency, which is built into all of this, as is the competencies for the firefighter role.
Okay. Okay.
One of the interesting things that I picked up on is that you're finally starting to include parish and town councils, because quite a few of us here are double actors. They either sit on a parish council or a town council, and we always feel as though we've left that. Even to your funding statements, it's borough or parish and town councils, not both.
Yeah, of course.
And prevention. We want prevention. We've had a spate of fires in our play areas, and I don't know how the fire station has gone. Sometimes they're going out twice a night to these fires that the children are setting or youngsters are doing. And that is what we want. We want prevention. But up to now, we've had a problem with our schools not accepting anybody to go in and do any talks because they've got a schedule that they work to, you know. And this is what I'd like to see, because if you teach them from that age that what could happen before they get to the high school, before they get to the next stage of it. So I've got to admit that is my favourite bit in here, that finding parish and town councils are being included in these things.
Yeah, thank you. We're still learning, aren't we? Yeah, definitely. And I think, we've got limited resources, so I think we were a bit concerned about how we get the message out to all the kind of parish councils, but I think it is important, and that's why we were keen to get Leo here. So as a face of your officer in North Warwickshire, it won't always be Leo as well, he's a very busy chap, but we'll make sure we get officers into those parish councils talking about the concept again and understanding what the issues are. We have got a product that we developed actually because of COVID to be issued out to schools as a virtual training package. And we can certainly seek to extend that. And as I say, John's going to be picking up the responsibility for that team. So we'll make sure we are looking at the prevention initiatives we can have into schools. But I think when you can identify a group of young people who may or may not be associated with the fires that are occurring, but soft intelligence would tell us actually that they probably have an awareness of it, if not a direct input. I think the input we can have with young people is one that creates a less defensive response than maybe our PCSO colleagues. They're absolutely brilliant people, as we know, and they do brilliant work. But engaging with young people, we found that we have a slightly better USP, it's the unique selling point with our young people. So we want to be able to get in there and talk to young people, and it's definitely, as you say, about prevention, the upstream issues, because the fire setting is only some sort of cry for help or attention, isn't it? And there's an underlying factor there we want to try and get to. And very often we have various routes that we're able to address those issues in, whether it's the initial education or getting into people's homes through a safe and well, and then having conversations in terms of what the safe environment looks like for people, and then a fire setters course that we have that we can provide even better input for those young people that have an interest in fire and turn it into a healthier interest rather than the destructive version. I
mean, I can only speak with Addiston Fire Station, obviously, but we have got a good what's it for them, because, you know, even with town council, if we've got a worry about anything, you know, they will go out and check people's fire alarms, and while they've been out checking people's fire alarms, they picked up on something else kind of thing. And with our COVID volunteer team, you know, again, and I volunteered at a certain place in Atherstone, and the private gate was actually fantastic. I volunteered, you know, giving out food parcels and things like that. So there is that working together point of it. But just touching back onto Councillor Clues's question. So this post is going to kind of be offered to somebody that already knows North Warwickshire, or is it somebody coming in that don't know North Warwickshire?
No, there'll be, I mean, again, the local intelligence is key.
It's got to be. That's the point.
You know, what I would love, this is a pilot scheme. Hopefully you'll have some input as to not only how the role's performing, but how the individual's performing, and, you know, that'll be fed back in regularly. You know, I think you've got to find the right person. This is what Cornwall told us, that the concept's great. It really is a good concept, but if you don't get the right person in the role, it doesn't work. And out of the 11 areas, they spent a lot of time trying to recruit the right people, and they would recognise that probably in 3 of those areas, they haven't got it quite right. The first one, I met Andy when it all started, 7-8 years ago, maybe. And he was absolutely brilliant. I mean, really, you know, such a positive individual, so keen to do the prevention work with young people. You know, it just landed really well. And at the end of the pilot, because it was a tri-service thing, one of the partners wasn't quite sure whether they wanted to proceed with it, but made some noises about whether they were going to pull the capability. The whole of Hale were kind of in uproar and said, you can't take away this individual. They're our go-to person. So I strongly believe this will turn into something really positive for you. You know, I think in terms of the commitment, the large share of this will be met by Warwickshire County Council, Warwickshire Fire and Warwickshire Police. And we're hoping that through good performance data for you, you can tell us whether it's right for you in this community as well.
Councillor Ray Jarvis.
One thing I'd like to ask is, will there be sort of a front desk facility where people can make a direct contact with that person?
Yeah.
At the moment, with the setup with the police, one of the things that we get a lot of the time is, how do you see a police officer?
How do you get on?
How do you get hold of them? Yeah. And I think, you know, a front desk facility is probably a key thing to this. Yeah. That they're working with the community need to be able to get hold of them when they need it.
So again, another part of the concept is, you know, really they should be working out of, you know, locations, but I would hope the fire station might be one of those. Now, we've got on-call fire stations across certainly 2 of the stations that we're talking about, and then Coleshill is a slightly separate scenario, but you know, that would be a point of call where you can actually request that officer deals with the issue that you'll bring to the table. We've got other lines of inquiry as well that we can bring in, so there'll be phone numbers available. But it won't just be fire stations, and I keep talking about fire stations. You know, what we want actually from all of the current fire stations is for those to be regarded as public assets going forwards, and they're open to community groups and charities and everything else. It's going to be, you know, a bit more of a challenge coming out of COVID to do that, but that's part of the concept. But wherever you tell us actually that that's the natural place for your community, that's where the high footfall rate is, or where people naturally go. Could be a surgery. You know, if you're getting people in and out of that kind of location on a regular basis, the drop-in for us might be in that location, and then they can pick up the referrals from there and take them on. And as I say, the idea again is that they are more visible. They are going to be stretched a bit. I appreciate that. And again, you tell us. You know, might be a bit of a conflict again between the 3 areas in terms of, you know, well, we want them, so we'll have them over here. But I think evidence-based is where we try to go through with this. And if we could ask you for where you think the greatest strength of evidence is that you bring that person to bear and have the biggest effect for you, because, as I say, very hopeful that if it works in one of these locations, we'll be able to expand upon it going forwards.
One of the things that we tried through Huntston Town Council some years ago was the police officer, referred to police, but the police officer being available at a certain time in a certain location. Now, obviously, they, like yourselves, are on wheels. If the blue lights start flashing, you go.
Yeah.
And one of the things we did was had like a postcard that with a sealed box where if they've got a problem, they pick up a card, they stick it in the box, and then you guys pick it up daily, weekly, whatever, and then respond to it. The key part is responding to it, is they don't just go in a box and stay there. The key part is actually getting that sort of response. But that would make a almost 24/7 access point.
Yeah, which I think I could definitely envision something like that being at every one of the fire station locations. And as long as we communicate this with the community, you know, I think, you know, the launch of this is going to be really important. And we make sure that the public are aware of these officers being in their communities and how to get hold of them. I think that'd be really key.
At that time, I actually bought one of the post boxes for them, but unfortunately their sort of workload precluded them from being there, and it sort of fell by the wayside. But it seemed to be something that, you know, if it's promoted right, people know if they put that card in that box, they're going to get a response. And as I say, the key thing is there is a response.
But
I think so.
Post box. Where was that post?
Where? It was in the arcade. There's one unit in the arcade 6-7 years ago.
Was that a link with Addiston Fire Station as well then?
No, it was
That
the
was just the police.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
it was the police, and as I say, it was they went in there, but obviously their on-call thing just meant that it didn't work.
I think you make a really important point about how, you know, busy our police colleagues can get. And I think this is why it's not like the fire bobby concept that we've had in the past, because we've tried that and it doesn't work because you just get drawn into the policing aspect of the role. This is something other. This is not, you're not employed by Warwickshire Police. You're not actually directly employed by Warwickshire Fire. So you're employed on a separate contract. And the responsibility of this individual will be, yes, you know, as I say, you're directed towards antisocial behaviour issues to try and get an understanding of what sits behind some of them. And then you don't get drawn into some of the kind of criminal processes. And it's more about then reassigning the individuals to going, you know, meeting these individuals that, you know, whether there's either ASB issues or vulnerability issues in your community, getting behind that and understanding where those are and addressing those issues. So
I think the construction of that card is key as well.
Yeah.
It's got to ask certain closed questions that don't allow any sort of diversions, and then maybe just a comment part at the end. Certainly some closed questions that get to the key
I think
issues.
it's a generation thing, isn't it? It depends on the generation that you're targeting. And if you're targeting young people, then it's texting or emailing, you know, Facebook, that kind of stuff. So for our generation that is happy to write a card and put it in a box, but if I said that to even my 25-year-old, you go, what?
But it's a
Give us a
start.
phone number, Mum, and I'll text him,
It's the
or
start.
email him or whatever, or contact him on Facebook,
That
Messenger.
The useful feedbacks that we want it in another format.
Yeah.
I think it's
not
about
one
saying,
format. It might lead to something else.
Ray, I think it's about saying, I think you've got to address it for both ends of the spectrum. You can't, you know, why ignore one to the other?
I think if it's soft intelligence coming in, then we want to get it from every quarter.
Yeah.
And it could be that you've got, you know, elderly people who are more inclined to offer us something in a written format to say, actually, you know, we've just got concerns about kids who are hanging around and lit this dustbin twice in, you know, successive evenings, and we're worried about what's going on there. That, if that's the intelligence feed for us, fantastic, win.
Yeah.
And equally, we might get some text messages. It's unlikely that kids are going to approach us directly in that way. But we've got loads of different assets now that we use for prevention. Sorry, John.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make the point really about, you know, your firefighters are extremely well trained in everything other than fire and rescue as you would know it. You know, they go into people's houses and they signpost safeguarding issues. So part of this, my view, is part of the Safer Warwickshire officer is also using all those resources So potentially, it's not just that one person straight away. It could be, okay, Atherstone, can you take a fire engine up to wherever, up near the tracks, and just sit up there for a few hours and engage with the youth who are riding their motorbikes where they shouldn't be, and point them in the right direction. Again, it's not we're here to tell you off. We now want to engage and talk to you. So on the surface, it does look like one person in the north, one person in the south. There's 200 or 300 firefighters that we can really get some momentum behind and utilise their skills.
I think one of our new councillors would be happy about that in his area.
Oh, definitely. Far too many fires going on in my area.
But I think that's a really important point, actually. Thank you, John. And I think it links to the point you made about whether this person will know North Warwickshire, because what we've got is a whole network. And so your on-call firefighter isn't just a firefighter in the community. They've got primary employment there. They're probably drinking the local pubs. They'll have an understanding of what's going on in that community. And I think that's, again, where it slightly differs from the PCSO role in the community. We've got all this kind of soft intelligence we can work with. We can put feelers out. They probably know the families and, probably know how to engage with some of those families as well, which is really important about the approach. And that it's not seen as something that's going to be, a kind of punitive approach. It's more about a rehabilitative approach. And that's some of the concepts I think that fire can bring to this that maybe other partner agencies would struggle with.
And this is why I come back to including the parish councils, because 2 of our play areas belong by the borough, and 1 of our play areas is run by the town council. So if there's a fire in one, they report it to the borough. If there's a fire in the other, it gets reported to the parish council, then probably reports it on to the police, then reports it on to CCTV. So that's why I think it's nice to engage with the parish and the town councils as well.
We do have the parish and town councils have an actual group, don't they, that meets? You're on that, Tony.
Yeah.
What's it called?
The North Warwickshire Area Liaison Committee, NWALC.
And is it Bridget Chandler that organises it?
Yeah, and that's all the parish councils all grouped together. So,
any more questions, members?
There's just one. How would they look? Would they look like a fireman? Would they look like half a policeman? Or how, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How would it be identified?
Second step.
Is it a uniform?
So there is a uniform that's been identified, and so you can see bottom right or top right, actually top bottom right. So they clearly require the stat vests because of the environment they're working in, and we want those anyway for protecting
I
our
took them as 3 policemen. That's what I was saying.
Well, and I think the thing is, it's more about contrasting with what the police officers wear. So I can always get this wrong. Is it Cornwall and Somerset? No, it is Cornwall and Somerset, is it?
Yes, Devon.
Devon Cornwall, please.
Yeah.
Devon Cornwall.
I'm sure it's Devon.
Brigade, sorry, I'm thinking of. Yeah, sorry, right. They've got the blue uniform, the PCSOs, so that's why they've gone for black. But we want a contrast with that, so we can definitely be distinguished from your police officer, sorry. But the bottom line is, though, it's not just about what gets explicitly seen, it's about what's implicitly known.
Yes.
So that person turning up at a playground, having a chat with lots of youngsters, with a fire engine that comes along with them, and they say, oh, it's Bill from your local fire station.
Yeah.
Or Jemima or whoever it might be, that's where you start to develop a different kind of trust relationship and where the information goes. So I think this is where, again, learning from Cornwall has come, that, they're dressed like that so they can be seen. It's that sentinel principle. So the members of the community feel really safe, somebody treading the path. But equally, the relationship can be a slightly different relationship.
Okay.
That's the difference between the blue uniform and the black uniform. Do you know why? To do with the sea. Clean, pure air. Up here, coal mining, dark.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So did you want to?
So I was just going to say that it is about the concept of the person as well. And I think we might have a bit of a serendipitous opportunity here. If we'd have waited until October, until they did the PCSO course, can't even say it, it would be further along the year, and who knows when that start date would be. but they might land and people might think, well, there's that new PCSO that wears a slightly different thing. So if we can get in now and we can get boots on the ground, get that dialogue opened up, talking to local people, and then they go on the PCSO training. I think it sort of leads into, yeah, that's not that new copper or that new PCSO. That is exactly what we want. That implicit, yeah, communication to say, right, this is the new person, and they're not a PCSO. They do some of the roles later. They find out, and so I think we've got an opportunity here to get our foot in the door first, and then add the other attributes that might need. And the other thing I wanted to say was, obviously we've got to do the recruitment process and this, that, and the other, but we've identified key people that might fit the role. So I'm not going to say we're going to lean on certain individuals, but
You are volunteered, yes.
but some of these people are already on-call firefighters that live in some of these communities, and they will know some of the people that are involved. They will know the local haunts, the local, youth that gather in a certain. They'll know the loud motorbikes that are going. So these people aren't being recruited from outside the area, and they go and sit in that fire station or surgery or whatever. They actually live and have worked and have got families in these communities. So hopefully, if we pick up one of those, we've already got a quick win there, haven't we? We can get them in. So thank you very much.
Any more questions, anybody?
Just to say, I think emphasising the prevention side of it is really important.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of PCSO, sorry, because it's like they're sent instead of a proper copper.
Yeah.
And sorry.
And I think if this new person,
Yeah.
whoever it may be, has got that sort of, is that new PCSO, I don't think it's going to work as well. And that's why, very much from the chief's point of view, and when we were speaking the other day, and I know we're very precious about it, we want it to be very much fire-led in as much as it's
a
about
flash
prevention.
of red and gold's going to help. A flash of red and gold is going to help, definitely.
I'll make
Separate the men from the boys, definitely.
It's like Councillor Davies said, when I first looked at and seen PCSO, I've been thinking, oh dear, because we've pushed for a long time in North Warwickshire for even to be able to give parking tickets out, and we've never seemed to have got anywhere. But again, it's the prevention bit, especially with our youngsters. And reading your criteria, whoever the person is that comes into this post, they've got to work with all our community, from youngsters right through to our older generation. So I'm hoping, and I hope the other members reckon, it's got to be the right person. It can't be somebody that's very good with youngsters, but they're not good with the middle one or the elderly. It's going to be an hard job whoever picks the person.
We reckon we've got a few names. Hopefully there won't be press people. They'll,
No more questions?
The only last thing I would say is, when you do recruit this person, if you could advertise it in a way that everyone will know what they are, rather than think that's another PCO, even start off, so that they could, maybe via Facebook or Twitter, whatever you want to do, to get the message out there to show that they are part of you, for example, not a PCSO, so that people identify that person as to who they are and what they're doing.
I think, to be very honest here, it's an equal contribution from Warwickshire Police, and they have got, I think, a concept that you could have either fire or police, but the role has to be different.
Yes.
But, we're confident we've got some very strong candidates coming from fire. So what we can't do is determine that exactly. But I think you're right. How we kind of set out our stall on this,
yes,
I think we'll attract the right kind of people, and equally, I've set my hat to Warwickshire Police on this. They've recognised the value of a prevention emphasis in this role as well, where they know that they, because of their role and how they're perceived in the community, they've got great strength in some areas, but fire probably has the edge on the prevention stuff. So it's their own recognition of that they're supporting this. So they've been great advocates of this so far.
Any questions, Robert?
No, well, I think it's been really useful to
Yeah.
talk around the details of it, really. So I think it's helpful for me as well to get that added picture of, the aim of it, really. So, all I can say is on a local level, we've got strong links with fire and rescue, with Becky Roberts particularly. And social behaviour locations with regular contact around that. So we've got the framework there to build on this. So and making all those connections with other services and support will be key. So and we've got some individuals we can identify for you anyway, without anybody else saying anything. So the work's there, isn't it? So,
I mean, without even having a conversation with Bex, she had a police background initially in Leicestershire, but has come into fire. She's part of our prevention team. She does all the arson prevention work, the antisocial behaviour prevention. She's absolutely fabulous, a great contender for something like this.
If you had 11 Becky Roberts, she'd be doing it. Wouldn't
Happy
you?
man, happy to. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Take care.
Could I just take, is it Councillor Jordan, are you asking for some more targeted support? Fires, you've had a lot of fires?
Yes, down, Addison Central Ward, yeah.
We'll take your name and
Okay.
I'll pass it on to Leo.
I think our biggest problem is CCTV not identifying the actual people that are causing the
Chair.
fires. Sorry, but I won't say any more. Sorry.
You've been told.
I have, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have you got a card? No.
No, I haven't got any.
We'll be in touch.
Make sure.
Okay. Robert will liaise with you with Councillor Jordan.
No,
Thank you. Agenda item 7, fly tipping progress report. This report provides members with an update on progress on the action plan for tackling fly tipping across the borough. The report informs members of the results of the consultation on the review of the Longley Public Space Protection Order 2017 and recommends that the order is renewed for another 3 years.
Thank you. Bye.
Questions, members?
To introduce it. Thank you, Chair. The report provides an update on the progress against the fire tipping action plan. So a regular kind of report for this subcommittee. I'll draw your attention to 4.1 paragraph on page 9 of the paper. So we've seen significant increase in fly tipping incidents across the borough. COVID and lockdown, we think, played a part in that. We're not convinced it's about access to the waste centre sites, but there's just been a general kind of outbreak of fly tipping, and I don't think it's just us. In other parts of the country, seeing similar kind of increases, but we're getting it across most of the borough. So in the papers, there's some analysis and shows the hotspot locations and parish areas, but I don't think there's an area in the borough which hasn't got some form of fly tipping issue across the year. So we are trying to tackle that. So members are often keen to hear about investigations. So currently the environmental health team got 111 incidents to look into. They're focusing on the cases where there's tangible evidence that can lead to further investigation. So and a reference there to some interviews still being able to take place. Once normal kind of business as usual returns for everybody, I'm sure we'll be able to gain more success on investigations and prosecute people where we've got the evidence to do that. The Streetscape division deployed the little cameras that we're using, CCTV against hotspots. As I've referenced previously in other reports, but those can be problematic. We do get them stolen, damaged, targeted, lots of things can trigger the camera footage out in the community. So we're trying to look at different options around that and see what's the most suitable. But I think we've had a certain period of time using the cameras that, you know, we need to take stock and see if there's any other new technology out there that will help us and be more effective on that. But there's no shortage of places where we could deploy cameras and spot tipping. In the report gives you some details around the level of images that we're capturing. And I know Pete Evans at the moment in Streetscape endeavouring to do as much as possible to make those cameras useful. At paragraph 4.36, we've got a particular location where in Tippers Hill Lane where fly tipping is persistent and they're tipping the waste into a watercourse, and that falls onto a private landowner. So we're working with that landowner, the Streetscape team assisting in the clearance. So we went to great endeavours to get into the watercourse and clear the waste. So we've explored options around with Warwickshire County Council at this location near a low bridge on a road. So it's quite easy to offload the fly tipping. So we're trying to see if there's any way of trying to make it, impossible to do, which is proved quite challenging. We're liaising with the police. We're looking for the local safe neighbourhood team and the police constable for that area to give that some attention, which he is doing. And the rural crime team that we're trying to get them on board with how we try and tackle this just persistent location. So we're still that location is still a problem. So it's an ongoing issue. So we're trying to stop it and capture who's responsible. And there is some evidence that can be investigated further. So hopefully that will lead to some positive news in the future. So the hotspots I've talked about at 4.4. In the appendices, there's an analysis that we've had done. So this is based on the locations that are recorded when the crews go out on a site. So they're doing a location deep data so that we can map where all these places are. They don't map every 100% of the locations, but the vast majority of the are. So it gives us a flavour of where all these locations are. So earlier on, the chair asked me about some of our locations that are our premises. So in Atherstone, as an example, we've got a couple of sites where there are blocks of flats. So we should be able to look at trying to address that issue where fly tipping left, alongside the containers that are there, those flats and things. So I've got the housing department looking at that at the moment. So we'll see what they can offer in terms of follow up on those locations and whether there's scope for additional CCTV as well. Then we're looking at that. So again, I've listed the hotspot locations. Some of those might not be any surprise to you, but they do cut across all of the borough. And a more recent new development is that we had a specific meeting with the Environment Agency and reps from the National Farmers Union, along with the police. So at 5.2, you'll see a long kind of bullet point list of actions that come out of that specific meeting. I think those actions will form a basis of us reviewing our overall action plan. So I don't know whether Richard Dobbs wants to come in at any point.
I was biding my time waiting for you to do all the hard work for me, actually, Robert.
Yeah. I won't steal all your glory, so.
But please do. But yeah, there isn't much to add. I think you've given a very comprehensive run through. But I think those listed bullet points do show how important that multi-agency approach is. And I think Rob's absolutely right that our action plan could do with a refresh. And it was interesting listening to the presentation earlier, actually, that the fire was giving. We've, as I think as Robert alluded to in that presentation, we have a good working relationship with the police, but also the fire service. And I think I could see that as yet another area where I think we'd like to see more progress. And it has been noticeable that the police have put more rural crime officers in our as well, which I think is also going to help with this. So we need to use the resources available to us. We need to use those links into those other agencies that we've got. And we need to share intelligence and work more closely because, as members will have seen from the figures, I think 1,400 fly tips is the largest number that I've seen in North Warwickshire in a year. So this problem isn't going away, and we need to do as much as we can to tackle it. And that multi-agency approach, I think, is the right way forward. And look at those hotspots, as Robert says, looking to see whether we can improve our CCTV coverage, the type of technology we use, but also I think other initiatives. You know, the sort of joint exercises where we work with people like DVLA, the police, to pull over vans with licensed waste carriers, work with the EA to see whether they're holding the right paperwork, whether they're complying with the regulations, and showing that we're out and about and actually actively pursuing people who are doing the wrong thing at this time. Because, as I've said before, most people are prepared to do the right thing, but only a few individuals are causing an awful lot of headaches for us and an awful lot of expenditure. But I think that's all I've got to add at this point. Obviously, there's the point about flying with POs that I'm sure Robert will touch on next, and we'll obviously answer any questions that members have got.
Want to finish the report?
Yeah. Also in those details from that meeting, the Environment Agency highlighted to us a scrap campaign that Hertfordshire County Council have helped set up. So that provides a toolkit of materials and initiatives to help prevent fly tipping. So that's something that we're looking to use locally, and that'll build upon our existing communications work, which really started in earnest when Olivia Charles was in post. So she's expected to return soon. So I think that there's opportunity there that will build on that materials and enhance what we can do. Paragraph 6, along this public space protection order. So at the last meeting, I set out that we were going to a proposal to do consultation for the review of the order. So for members that are not aware, the order was set up in 2017 and was subject to a variation in 2018. But the order restricted access to highway, 2 lanes into Longley, so Digitally Lane and Bun Lane, where we have a persistent fly tipping problem. So the order was approved then, and civic gates were put in on these 2 lanes to restrict vehicle access. In particular, it allowed people to access it with normal kind of business, and allowed horses to be able to get through the gates as well. So it was accessible, but prevented the wrong type of vehicle getting in. So, and local businesses that rented out some of the fields nearby, they had access to the gates and things to get through. So we since last meeting we carried out some consultation. So in the appendices to the report, it's that shows the results. So there's not a huge number of responses to the consultation this time round, and of the 9 specific responses we received, 1 didn't support the order, but the rest did. So the public agencies, statutory agencies have been consulted as well. So we've had support from Warwickshire Police, Warwickshire Fire and Rescue, Longley Parish Council support it, and specifically also I've made contact with the Warwickshire Police and Crime Commissioner. So we've had response through their office that they fully support what we're trying to do here, and they recognise fly tipping as a significant issue that they're keen that the rural crime team helps with as well. So I'll look to Clive in case there's any technical legal questions to stress around public safety protection order.
Chair, the only issues set out in the report patients at 9.3.1 is simply that if the committee is satisfied that the unlawful activities are continuing to have that detrimental effect on neighbourhood, they're likely to persist or continue, and these are appropriate measures, then the committee would be entitled to review the order on that basis.
Councillor Jarvis?
I've got 2 points really. One is we have had some prosecutions with this. They're never publicised as good news stories, and a bit of sort of heavy publicity on some prosecutions certainly wouldn't harm things. And I mean, we have a press officer in the council. Could they be engaged with it as well, so that they can help? Because you can almost furnish a house some days off Facebook when you look at, there's a 3-piece suite at the end of the drive, there's a washing at the end of the drive, and there's a central heating boiler or whatever. And we've got a facility in the council of the press officer. Could they be engaged with it as well to sort of raise the profile of it? And my second point, I'd like to move the extension of the public space protection order.
Chair, so
Yeah, do you want to answer the first one and then you do the second one?
Yeah, the publicity on prosecutions, we do publish the details of prosecution cases, so they will be published on the website and through social media channels as well. I think it's because you might not have seen them that frequently, that it doesn't appear that we are doing that. So I can recall a case from a year ago or more from Ward Troughton where a landlord got fined because he failed to do his duty in terms of waste collection. He got to remove some waste. So it is a recognised issue that we do need to make sure it's out there and people know about it. So and it might discourage people to not go to inappropriate waste collections as well. So yeah, so definitely
Before we look at some of the best advertising things that travel all around the borough.
Yeah,
It's the sides of the refuse vehicles.
yeah,
You can get some enormous things, and they travel every street of the borough every week.
I'm sure Clive will give me a steer on this, but we'd have to be proportionate if we put an individual on the side of a refuse vehicle that may be deemed as.
I'm not suggesting.
No, but take your point.
I'm saying the guidance.
Yeah.
Guidance on there. Say it's those vehicles travel every street of every ward.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity that can be relatively cheap, but get everywhere.
Yeah. I think we are watching you type on some of the refuse vehicles.
Shall we take questions before we explain?
Chair, I think just through you as well, Chair, if I can, the report, and I think Robert's also mentioned the scrap campaign, which I think we'd be very keen to pick up on, and certainly the refuse vehicles give us the opportunity to do some of that advertising that Councillor Jarvis refers to. I would also say that we did issue press releases in relation to the 2 major convictions we've had most recently. But we can't, of course, influence the press in terms of what they pick and what they run on their front page, as much as I'd like to see those cases make headline news. But we do work closely with our press officer, and as Rob's also said, once Olivia Charles is back from her maternity leave, then we'll be making sure that we redouble our efforts in terms of promotion and publicity and making sure that message gets out there. And also in terms of what is the right thing to do in terms of what you should be doing with your waste, and also how to check whether the people knocking on your door and offering to take stuff away for a tenner are complying with the law, whether they've got the waste carrier's license, where to go to get that information. We can do more of that as well. So certainly we'll look to do more of that. Thanks, Chair.
Richard, if I could just ask you a question while you're there. The fly tipping in Ridge Lane, Arden Forest, is it furniture and white goods?
you're putting me on the spot, Chair. I will find out and get back to you.
Okay, it's just something I could take to parish council and they could probably put something on their website about it, just reminding people.
Yep, I'll find out.
Any questions? Councillor Parker?
Robert, do we know the offenders that have been prosecuted? Are they from the borough or are they from outside?
I'd say mainly Marisol.
So they're coming in from external supply.
I mean, so there are local people, like, we've got around our own premises, so, but the vast majority, I'd say, we're outside, but so many opportunities in the rural locations. We're surrounded by other urban areas, not typecast areas, but yeah.
Robert, do you want to carry on with the report before we take the public space order, or are you okay?
I think I'm about done on that.
Okay, no more questions? Right, I've got a proposal from Councillor Jarvis to take the public space protection order for another 3 years, is that right?
Yeah.
Have I got a seconder?
I'll second.
Got a second, Councillor Joining. Clive? Mr Tobin?
Chair, we don't need to do a recorded vote anymore. That's
No.
all votes.
All in favour? Thank you very much. Right, we're on to agenda item number 8, North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership update. Report by the Chief Exec. Is it you, Robert?
Yeah.
This report provides members with an update on recent activities with the North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership. The report includes information about progress with the agreed priorities from a strategic assessment 2020-2021 and the latest crime statistics.
Thank you, Chair. Regular progress reports on the activity of the North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership. I draw members' attention first to documents in the appendices. So, Appendix A is the crime statistics for the 2021 year, so from April to March. And then Appendix B is a quarter 4 community safety performance report, which is the same crime statistics, but presentationally, it gives you a bit more insight and provides some details around ward levels as well in that particular document. So the paragraph 4, I've just picked out some of the headlines from the performance report. So violence figures are still going up, and that's mainly due to additional recording on violence without injury offences. So I think if you just think about that, you think, well, that's fighting in the streets or argy-bargy type stuff. But it includes a lot more than that. So there's a lot of malicious communications that go on through social media that get recorded in that category. So there's been a huge kind of increase in offences that come under that category now. So and that continues to be the case. So to be quite concerned about overall numbers of violence going up, but it's not in terms of traditional type violence, if you like, and associated with nighttime economy and that type of thing. So, but there's definitely more offences being recorded in that category. Domestic abuse is a significant feature of some of those offences. So both with and without injury. So fortunately, with injury offences haven't gone up, but there is an increase in the without injury offences as well in that category. Acquisitive crime, so that includes vehicle crimes, domestic burglaries, personal robberies. So that's seen a big reduction, but there's a big caveat with that because we've just gone through a series of lockdowns and that's restricted opportunities for traditional offenders fences type. So I think there's a general view that there's a risk that that level of crime will increase as things get returned to more normal situation. But you know, it's positive as in there's been less crime. So but there's that warning caveat around that. So and social behaviour incidents, these have really gone the other direction from previous years. We've had years of reductions in reported incidents. Over the last year and before, we've seen a significant increase. Now, Warwickshire Police are currently doing a significant review of how they record antisocial behaviour incidents and the process that goes behind that. So there's a Chief Inspector, Carl Faulkner, who attends our partnership. It's his initiation. This review's being carried out. So we might be coming back in future meetings to tell you about a different profile of the antisocial behaviour incidents, and we may see more things being recorded in that category. Now, being operational as well, we have monthly meetings with partners looking at hotspots and issues and what was referred to earlier with the Fire and Rescue Service. You know, throughout these increases, I've not seen significant problems emerge that we didn't know about. So, you know, it's kind of strange to see these stats going up without seeing tangible things come through, you know, at the partnership meetings to think, you know, that there's new problems to address. So we'll see what comes back in this police review. But it, you know, from my perspective, it's difficult to see, you know, anything else that we don't know about yet. So it might be illuminated suddenly, but it's a, you know, an unknown thing at the moment. So the road safety figures are in the performance report as well. So there was 40 serious injuries in North Warwickshire over the last year. And total recorded crime is down by 421 crimes. So I'll take the positive that's you know, a positive step, but again with a caveat that we've gone through the lockdown period, so that's got to have a big significant part in that as well. So at the last meeting, there were some questions raised about differences in ward level total. So at 4.3, I've tried to pick out some of the differences there when you look at the attendances. And there's certain wards where you might have a particular person or family with some incidents, and they generate, you know, an increase in that area, which can be significant in terms of variation, but they're not huge numbers. But you get these differences across the area in boroughs. So I've tried to pick out some of that difference there. And 4.4, I've just referenced what the inspector for the North Warwickshire Safe Neighbourhoods team, Alison Wigan, has provided around how they the police consider violence. So that's really to give you some reassurance that, you know, despite the stats going up, these things are looked at in some detail and monitored. So, you know, we're not missing significant things really, it's the message on that. And then at Appendix C, I've provided an update against the partnership plan, which is something that we have to have for the partnership. So it's an update against all the detailed action and objectives that the partnership's got in its plan. So until this point, I haven't been able to do that, but I've provided it this time at the year end. So I've picked out some headlines from there, 5.2, the bullet point. So we work with the police and partners now on the problem solving plan. So and that is still under development, but the specific things are identified for more intense kind of focus and the specific problem solving plan. So there are a mixture of things. So at Hartsel, we've got community concerns around the Kirby Bleak farm side, and at the moment we've got increased reports of off-road bike nuisance across the borough. It's kind of really exploded over recent months. So there's been a number of things put in place to address that. The police take the lead on a number of these. So community impacts from public sector environment. So we've got some locations where those issues are presenting, and they have been for a number of years really in some of the locations. So the police are working with lots of different partners in terms of managing those situations. So from a positive point of view and also an enforcement point of view as well. So, and youth related antisocial behaviour, sometimes locations like Abergreek Park can be a bit of a honeypot for the nuisance and antisocial behaviour. So it's a well-used park. At the time I wrote that report, a plan was being developed. Since then, it's kind of quietened down, so it's not a current issue. But it does come and go, those sort of locations. And the things Chair mentioned earlier around the play area in Atherstone, with our local work, we know there's at least 3 young people that have been identified that need some more intervention and measures to get them on a more positive front, to not keep setting fires and getting into bad behaviours and things. So all that's kind of being pulled together at the moment. Domestic abuse support. So we do contribute towards what was known as the Warwickshire Domestic Abuse Counselling Services. It's a specialised service, so they're continuing to provide their support. They've had to adapt how they do it using telephone and other technologies over the COVID lockdown period. So slight reduction in numbers of referrals, 78 compared to 87 in the previous year, but it's still a positive that they've been able to engage with victims of domestic abuse. So that's something that we support on the local level. There are county-wide support services as well provided by Refuge, and they're quite significant as well. And that's something we're going to have to look at the future around what's the best thing to do for the North Warwickshire victims of domestic abuse. So further on in the report, you can see the bullet points there. I've tried to pick out some key headlines there. Community safety funding. So we've seen a reduction in the allocation for the current year. So the allocation is £22,469. So that's been allocated against contribution towards a county-wide youth education initiative. So it's £3,000 for North Warwickshire to contribute towards that. That'll be part of a bigger package of things. So I know schools are difficult to get into, and there's lots of agencies want to get into schools around prevention work and various other things. So hopefully that will be more coordinated instead of us just doing it, on a local level on our own. So the county council are going to put some resource into this, and hopefully that will kind of lead to more benefits in the future. Domestic abuse services, so we contributed £10,000 from the partnership grants towards that. That's supplemented by £15,000 from the borough through mixture of reserves and corporate policy budget allocation. And then we've got some allocations against general projects and emerging issues. So the first one there, £4,469. So that can be anything from crime prevention on just funded £500 towards a package of measures against catalytic converter theft. So that's trying to help people prevent those happening.
It's like the market, I thought.
It is, yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah. And then the Safe Warwickshire Officer, so there's £5,000 allocation, partnership allocation towards that. Now, that allocation from our point of view is towards initiatives and projects rather than the costs of the actual officer. So I know the Chief Fire Officer might want to use it to keep the core funding going, but we see that more for projects and initiatives, but we're open to a dialogue on that. And what was talked about earlier about the timescale, that is important for us because this funding has to be committed and spent by the 31st of March next year. So if there is a delay and they don't appoint somebody till after October, there's less time to get organised and get the initiative set up. So, you know, if they can do it sooner, I think that would be helpful for us from a partnership point of view. So, and then moving on to the partnership plan, we have a statutory requirement to prepare a plan, and I've recently updated the plan. So there's going to be some minor tweaks to some of the partnership groups, which I'll kind of update. But that's attached in Appendix D for members' attention, really. And you know, any comments are welcome. You can feed those back to the partnership. But it's based on the strategic assessment findings. So you know, we are evidence-based led. That's what I mentioned earlier. But that analysis does inform priorities and what we aim to do. So there's a lot of information there in the report and in appendices, but hopefully I've set out in the report the key headlines. So welcome any questions or queries.
Thanks for Brian Moss.
Thank you, Chairman. Off-road motorbikes have been a problem in Kingsbury for years. More and more of the off-road motorbikes now are on-road, you know, bikes without number plates. And, you know, within the last year, it's been a terrific increase in electric scooters, none of which are legal in this area because we're not one of the trial areas. And I wrote to the government to object. They still went ahead years ago. I'm very familiar with them, well, before lockdown, in Romania, Bulgaria and Poland. They just go everywhere. You'll see them overtaking cars in the fast lane of city traffic, then across the bicycle lane, oh dear, and then onto the pavement, and then they don't even lean them up. They just lay them flat. That's not good for blind people, obviously. But now it's getting worse. You can buy them, you see them advertised. They're electric motorbikes. I mean, if one came past my house the other day, that's a terrific speed, and it had footrests, so it wasn't an electric bike. And I couldn't measure it, but I don't think it was doing limited to 15.5 miles per hour, kilometers per hour. I can't remember. Anyway, that's that. But they are, and there was a chap parked on outside my house the other day, and I went out to have a look at it. It was a sophisticated piece of machinery. It was an electric motorbike. No number plate, no. I mean, the chap saw me looking at it, he thought I was admiring it, he told me all these good points. I didn't make any adverse comment, but it's a problem of growing. And of course, they're affordable. Well, I don't think that one was affordable, not even to me, but the smaller ones are.
Councillor Clues?
I was just curious at how you came by £4,469 when everything else was 3,000, 10,000, 5,000. Why was that?
Well, simply because of the overall, the allocation was reduced by a percentage by the Police and Crime Commissioner. So,
yeah.
You know, in simple terms, we had to juggle around the allocation. So, you know, that was one that's going to be open to, you know, a number of things really. So, you know, we might supplement that through Borough Council money as well. So,
okay.
So,
right.
Any other questions, members?
No.
Going back to Brian's point, if you sign up to the Rural Watch outfit either on Facebook or on anything else, they give you all the hits, and they've been doing a lot of work with the motorbikes. Yeah, I've been following it, and they're doing a lot of work.
I don't, Shane, not Shane, well, what's his name? Shane Bird, yes. He does Kingsbury fairly well. They come and I was cycling down the.
They picked one up the other day.
Yes, I saw them, and they've got Finongley Motors who do their retrieval, and they took a guy's motorbike away. I don't know what happened to the guy. I didn't care either.
No more questions. This is just for noting. Is that right, Clive?
This chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, agenda item 9. Progress report on achievement of corporate plan targets. This report informs members of the progress of the achievement of the corporate plan targets relevant to the Safer Communities Subcommittee for the April 2020 to December 2021. Okay, Robert.
Okay, just for members to know, really, that summary should say April 2020.
I did think that. I thought
It does refer to that. In the report.
We've gone a bit.
That one got through the net, so apologies for that. So this is the regular progress reports based on the corporate plans that relate to safe communities. So you'll see in the appendices the updates which do reflect the safety partnership work that we're doing. So they're very similar. So the corporate plan actually reflects our partnership work. So really just the noting really on that one.
Got your red and your green, but there's no colours on mine.
No. Black and white prints. So you've seen them more clearly on the.
Any questions? No, that's just to be noted. Right. Agenda item 10. North Warwickshire Improving Road Safety Action Plan Progress Report. This report provides members with an update on progress within the North Warwickshire Road Safety Action Plan. The report also outlines recent road safety developments and feedback from the Warwickshire Road Safety Partnership. Robert, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. This report provides an update against the local action plan that we've put together for a couple of years now. As previously reported, the Warwickshire Road Safety Partnership is now kind of re-established and got more energy in it now. So there is a strategic board and an operational board. So I'm a representative on the operational board for the community safety partnerships across Warwickshire. So not just for North Warwickshire, but for the others. Some of the areas don't see road safety as a particular priority, whereas the community safety partnership does. And obviously local members here see it as priorities in our corporate plan. So I've reported back about the operational board previously. So in the detail of the report, you can see a number of bullet points, and I'm trying to give you a flavour of the sort of things they're discussing at that level now. So one of the key things that being put together at the moment is we're going to produce a new Warwickshire Road Safety Strategy, and the County Council have appointed some consultancy firm called Virginia to do some work on that. So in the appendices you'll see some presentation slides, and that just gives you a flavour of the sort of issues that the consultants start to pick out. So this opportunity for members just to highlight their specific concerns around road safety, but you can feedback in the development of this road strategy. So, the example Councillor Moss raised about e-scooters, that they are picking up on the use of e-scooters as well as an issue. There's been some need on that, but North Warwickshire has a number of what they call clusters, where we have lots have been identified as high degree of accidents and across the borough. So North Warwickshire is a significant feature of that for Warwickshire overall. So I'll come back to that in a minute, but members can kind of identify any specific issues they would like to be reinforced as part of that strategy development. So in the detail of the reports, we've still got a little bit of funding, which is outlined in paragraph 4. We've not heard that we can't carry over this £2,880 in the Advantage office. So that will be spent this year, albeit well if the restrictions get released significantly suitably. So the projects to encourage the more viability schemes in schools in North Warwickshire will kind of be able to take place then. So hopefully that's the case. Members have asked about grid speed watching in the past, so, and I know during the lockdown, you know, there's been restrictions on what can take place. Previously, there was a coordinating role as part of the alliance with West Mercia, with Warwickshire Police, and that did give some capacity issues in how I think responsive they could be. So now the scheme is fully under the kind of ownership of Warwickshire Police, and they've put it under the responsibilities of a specific unit team. So and it's led by a chief inspector. So I'm confident that in time that will start to show more support on a local level, because it's just based in Warwickshire now. So and I've attached in the appendices a newsletter which they've just recently produced and circulated around to give a bit of an update around where they are with the schemes generally. Still not ready to get back to where they were pre-lockdown, but hopefully that will soon start to take place. And under the Road Safety Partnership Operational Board, there's a subgroup which is called the Speed Working Group. So that's been chaired by Chris Lewis from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. Chris was an inspector with Warwickshire Police for many years, so he's quite influential in direction of things. So this group's looking at how speeding can be considered and responded to. So lots of speeding issues get raised by local communities across Warwickshire, and it certainly does in North Warwickshire. So within that group, there's some work taking place, and they've been looking at some good practice in other areas where there's a central kind of system for reporting speeding issues that can be looked at by a number of partners, and not just in isolation by the police or the county council. It's more of a coordinated assessment of what that issue is and what response to that should be. So that's under development at the moment. So in the future, there'll be more details around any specific proposal for launching of a kind of system for the public to use to highlight their specific speeding concerns through a central point. So in terms of the strategy, what I mentioned earlier, so there's a number of slides there which list of key words that they've highlighted. It's kind of been influential and things to look at and explore, but towards the end of those slides, there is a kind of table which sets out some of the ideas that the consultants have put into Warwickshire around working towards a safe system where it's not just around looking at a reduction in casualties. This is about more of a prevention approach. So, and I think that's consistent with some of the comments some members have made previously around where the focus at the moment is. They have to look at a specific location in terms of has there been any killed and serious injuries, and then that informs how resources are allocated, and that there's a limit on what can be done in terms of environmental improvements. This strategy approach is supporting a much more kind of prevention focused agenda on road safety. So it's still under development. So you've seen that table where it's got, as an example, what is the problem? Trying to prevent all crashes, safe system, prevent crashes from resulting in fatal and serious injury casualties. So the recognition there that things will always happen, but if we can build a system that means that if that does happen, the impacts and implications of that are less severe, and that's all for the good. So, so that's what I kind of take from their approach there. But it's just an opportunity for members to feedback what their road safety concerns are that we can try and get some due consideration of as part of that strategy development, really. So.
Thank you. If I could just go back to 5.3, the community speed watch.
Yeah.
How are we going? Because I know that the members of the public that they got interested in Manchester is kind of wavered because obviously there was a gap and then COVID's come in and it's kind of starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
So are they all ready to up and run if the residents and volunteers come back again?
Yes, they put it under the specific remit of a specific team in place, so that's.
I know the
very
parish
good.
councils and that was interested before been emailed to just say that it's back up and.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Any questions, members? Councillor Parker?
Further to what Councillor Breeze just said, is there a contact person on this group
Yes.
that we can contact? Or is there a?
Yeah, I mean, I know the individuals there, so they might want to use a generic email or contact for you there. So, and I think it's still trying to find it for you at the bottom. Yeah, so there's a generic email for the roads precinct team. So I can get that circulated around to members. So big feedback for excellent. That's an obvious thing, isn't it, that you need good feedback.
Councillor Jarvis?
Thanks, Chair. There's one initiative that BCSO Scott has raised recently in Atherstone, and it's a good piece of work that he's doing down by the QE school. In one day, he saw 2 near misses. To quote him, the frightening that you get 600 kids come out all in one block, and he is looking for support in that, in doing something to make it safe down there, because you've got cars that park all the way down the main road, and say 600 kids come out all in one block, and believe me, daily there are near misses.
Yeah.
It's now been spotted by BCSO Scott on another operation that he was doing. But he has raised it and he needs help on that, in doing something to make that road safe before there's a serious accident. And going on to the serious accidents, it's the way that they're recorded. Because I had an incident down with by Race Meadow School where there was a child actually knocked over and required medical assistance, but it was never reported. And then when I contacted County Council, their staff said nothing down there.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was never reported, and yet there was a child knocked over and required medical assistance. So I'm afraid I'm not a great believer in these statistics, because it's the way that they're recorded, and sometimes they're recorded in a manner that sort of helps the statistics along in not recording everything.
So on that particular case, if it wasn't reported to the police, or it wouldn't get formally recognised, would it?
It was.
It was, right.
I was
Okay.
supplied an email from a person that reported it, but because it wasn't done officially, it was known in their office. It was known in the office of the county council.
Yeah.
Because the email went to them, but because it wasn't recorded officially, it would never come down as statistics.
Okay.
And I think that.
Yeah,
that's
I
why
would
sometimes
expect
these
that to
things
be
are
recorded, to be honest.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Going back to the point of the high school, there is going to be, I'm just waiting for the officer to get that person. There will be a multi-action meeting. Robert knows about that with the police officer, the school and the ward member and the county council ward member. Any more questions?
Chair,
Councillor Jordan?
I just wanted to say this Warwickshire Police newsletter, it looks quite good, doesn't it? It's very informative. But what is what are their ways of traffic calming? Is it speed bumps? Is it chicanes? What do they do to promote this speed watch?
So traffic calming really is more physical, environmental kind of measures which the county council arrange. So community speed watch is more about local communities getting involved to identify people that are speeding through a section of road, and
It's not like the years ago, well, a few years ago, village residents used to stand on the outskirts with their own little camera.
yeah, well, they'll have a
Is that
device,
sort of thing as well?
they've got a device which is calibrated, and it's an official device which the police provide. So there's training for the volunteers that take part in the scheme, and the locations are assessed as well as being suitable for monitoring in that way as well. So some locations are identified and they're just too high risk to do that sort of thing.
And is that followed through afterwards? And if someone is caught on this camera, or
yeah, that can lead to enforcement and penalties. So it was gaining some momentum, but obviously, we've had COVID and that's stopped everything. But I think the new team that's set up to cover this will give it more consistency and keep more sustainable.
Councillor Jarvis?
With this, you mentioned there's an action group being set up around the school. Could I be included with that? Because I live opposite there and I see it every single day of the week. And to be honest, if I'm not included, I'll be rather annoyed in the fact that I have raised it many, many times. And as I say, live opposite there, see it every single day of the week.
Noted.
Chair, I can offer reassurance that we should expect a good response from the County Council around some of the things that have been raised by PCF Gavin Scott. Some of the individuals that are involved on that problem around the school have been identified at other locations around Accleston, and there's things already planned in terms of interventions, and at least one of them will be subject to a prevention referral with youth justice services. So, as an individual does need some work and engagement to get them off the bad behaviours. So.
I'm more concerned with the road safety side of it.
Oh, I know, but it's part of another wider problem, with the individual.
Having Big Barrel while he was on that other operation.
Yeah.
No more questions? Councillor Parker?
Just on the speed watch, does that cover speed only, or does that cover antisocial driving, whatever that may be? Like people driving up onto the footpath to get past something that's blocking their way?
Yeah, that would be picked up in terms of that general scheme. I mean, it's labelled speed, but, driving stupidly like that, that's an obvious issue, isn't it? So, that would be picked up. And
thank you.
Operation Snap is a useful way of reporting those sort of things. Members have seen that. So.
I'd like to thank Robert and all his team who's put this fantastic piece of work together as usual.
I recognise a lot of information there, but
I think this bit at the back is very informative. Yeah. I really like that. I've got to admit.
But if members do have any specific things around the Warwickshire road safety strategy, please feed them in, and we'll try and get those raised at the county level for due consideration.
Councillor Jarvis, before I close.
One very last thing for Robert is that when they put the speed humps down Rutherley Road, they were done as these silly platforms that people can drive down the middle, which has been a bone of contention for many years. The reason that they did it was given by Councillor Fox at the time, is because the bridge on the bypass was too low for normal sized vehicles to get under. What we know as the Curly Bridge, because it's curved on the outsides, it was too low for vehicles. That bridge is now being replaced. So there is no reason why now those humps by us shouldn't be made into proper speed. where people can't drive down the middle at ridiculous speeds.
Thank you.
So the reason for it now has been removed by replacing the bridge on the bypass.
Close the meeting at just after 8:25. Thank you, members. Take care. Thank you, officers.